Hey, Frank and Arlo. Sitting here in my living room with my feet up because I have an ankle injury, and your grandmother won't let me do much of anything except just sit here. So I figured I'd make a video, even though it's in this horrible lighting. In 1996, I gave my life to Jesus. Now, I started playing guitar when I was 11. The summer that I turned 12, my parents bought me a guitar and they bought me a surfboard. So I started doing both of those things. And I've never been a good guitarist. I can hold my own chops. I can play along with other people, but I don't read music. I can't play lead. As a singer, I'm kind of mediocre. I can sing. I could sing a lot better before the cancer, but I can sing, but I can't sing harmony. Excuse me. Well, soon after I became saved, I met a guy named David Brewer, and he had a Messianic Jewish Bible study that was affiliated with Calvary Chapel, which was the church that I went to when I first got saved in Philadelphia. And I would travel up from Stone Harbor, where I lived, up to Philadelphia on Wednesday nights. And I would lead worship at this lady's house. I forget her name, but she was a Jewish lady. It was very, very interesting. It drew Jewish people with questions about how could I possibly believe in Jesus when I've been taught my whole life that it's a fairy tale, that he's a pagan. And so it was great, and it was interesting to watch David answer those questions, or try to answer them anyway. Then for some reason we couldn't meet there anymore. And so we met, and that was in Oxford Circle, which is a predominantly Jewish area. Then we moved to the far northeast, to an area that wasn't necessarily Jewish at all, to this lady named Kathy Dowd's house. It drew a pretty large crowd every Wednesday, but it was different. Not better or worse, just different. So I learned how to play a lot of Jewish songs, and I learned how to play the current Calvary Chapel worship songs, and I love both of those genres. I kind of cut my teeth on the Calvary Chapel songs, and then I quickly started learning the Messianic Jewish songs. They're beautiful. Usually you sing a verse in Hebrew, and then you sing the same verse in English. So you get the beauty of the Hebrew language, but you understand what you're singing. But I was driving up from Philadelphia to Philadelphia from Stone Harbor every week. It was brutal. It's 2 hours each way. And I also had a commute to work every day that was pretty long. So it was hard to make that happen. And eventually I started to meet people in the Cape May Courthouse area where grandmother and I lived after your great-grandparents died, and your grandmother and I got married. We bought a house in Cape May Courthouse. We didn't live in Stone Harbor. And we started going to a couple churches there to try to find a church. We eventually found the Methodist church that we liked. But along the way, in the different churches, I started to meet people who were praise leaders. And I met Ed Lazuski. He told me about a guy named Scott Novick, who had a Messianic congregation. So it was a synagogue. It met at a Lions Club or something, I think in Woodbine. And Ed led worship there. So I started to play a little bit with Ed, and I would go in, and if Ed and his wife Karis couldn't play, I would fill in for them and stuff like that. And one of the things that happened is I met Clint Adams, who's an awesome drummer. He's blind. He's been blind since he was, I think, 17, which means he got to drive a car, walk under the moonlight with a girl, catch a football, all kinds of things that people who are blind from birth don't know about. And Clint had whatever the bad kind of diabetes is, and he wound up going blind because of it. Great drummer. And we started to do praise and worship. We would play at churches, the Messianic Synagogue. We would do weddings, outreaches. I remember one time we played for some sort of a Boy Scout convocation in Wildwood that was on a pier next to the boardwalk, or attached to the boardwalk, and we played down on the beach for these boys. I think it was like a church service or something. We played for all these Boy Scouts. Another time we did an outreach that hundreds of people came to on the boardwalk in Seattle City. And we even played weddings. He was my wingman, Clint. If I ever was asked to play someplace, the first thing I'd do would be to call Clint and say, "Hey, man, you in?" And more often than not, he was. At some point, I think through the big Methodist church, not the one that we went to. We went to one, I forget the little town that ours was in, but there was a big one kind of around the corner from us in Cape May Courthouse. At that church, I met Dave Rapici. Found out he played the guitar, and he invited me to come out to some guy's garage out in Dennisville. I forget the guy's name. But I did, and I would go out there one night a week probably for a couple years and jam with these guys. They were much better musicians than I am. And sometimes they would play out. They'd go and get gigs and play. They were in bands, and sometimes they would put a band together to play a gig. I was never asked to do that, but I enjoyed playing with them, and I became a much better musician. One of the things that happened there was I met Dave's cousin, Mike Rapici, who is a smooth, awesome guitarist. I've lost contact with him. But he just, and not only was he smooth, but he had perfect pitch, so he could tell if his guitar was in tune or not. So if you had Mike Rapici playing with you, he was going to be in tune. Also, there was a guy there named Dan Keene, who is a keyboardist. He owns something called the Brightside newspaper with his wife, Rhonda. Very, very nice people. Well, around this time, I had written a song based on Isaiah 49 called A Light for the Nation. I wrote it because I was starting a gospel ministry, and I still have that. It's I don't lead worship anymore any place, but it's still kind of in the back of my mind that I'll start that up again. And it's called A Light for the Nations Gospel Ministry. So this is sort of the theme song for that. Dan had a really nice setup in his bedroom. They had kind of a small house. It was a 1-bedroom house. So he had a recording studio in his bedroom. When you hear this song, and I'm going to play it for you, just imagine that it was recorded in the bedroom. Clint had his full drum kit in there and everything. I think we did 2 or 3 takes. Dan picked the best take, and then he did some stuff with the keyboards. It doesn't sound exactly like it did when we recorded it, so it's not really a live recording, but except for Dan's stuff, it's live. It was like we were standing on the stage doing it. So when we got there, I explained the song. I played the song one time for everybody. And I said, well, this is the feeling I want to have, and this is the kind of background I want in it. And Mike went, listen, I'm feeling Carlos Santana. And I thought, nothing could be further from what I'm thinking. This guy's really good. So I said, well, run with that. Now, I did the lead vocals, and I played rhythm guitar. I had a 12-string Rain Song, all graphite guitar. It was made in Maui. I sold it several years ago. I wish I had it. It was beautiful. It had, for the ivory inlays along the neck, the fretboard, it had sharks. Just an awesome guitar. And I think it's the only song that I've ever recorded. I'm pretty sure of that. And I hope you enjoy it. Peace out.